Hey everyone, it's Peter here, and welcome to Ageless Confidence, where life is life, age is age, and we get real about both. Sometimes our greatest teachers can come from the most expected times or forms. And today I want to share something about my little ginger cat and the lessons that I've learned from her and the difference between merely surviving and living. And this lesson hits me quite hard in the wake of actually losing her. And the one thing I think that we could all benefit from hearing, especially at this stage of life. So, this isn't just about the loss of a pet, although it's certainly part of the story. It's about how we show up in our daily lives, how we define what makes life worth living, and whether we're actually present for life or whether we're just grinding through each and every day. So let's dig in. Now, Ginger Meg, she's a cat that turned up on my doorstep and I could hear the rustling in the trees outside some years back. When she came out from those trees, she was just skin and bones. She had a broken tail and she was clearly someone who was fighting just to exist. So she was surviving and just barely. And when I sat there with her still body in my arms, I realized that she had taught me something that was quite profound about what it means to move from survival mode into truly living. And I think this matters to us women because we do go through the ringer of life, right? And we come out the other side. And because we've all had periods where things have got tough, whether that's from raising children or raising grandchildren or caring for a loved one or caring for parents, managing careers and navigating possibly our own health challenges as well too. But here's where I think we need to ask ourselves this question. Are we just surviving each day or are we actually living? And here's one of the things that I've learned along the years about grief is that it has this way of stripping away any pretense and showing us what actually matters. Having been through grief at a young age when I lost my grandmother, lost my grandfather, lost my father as well too, and I lost a cat some years back as well too. But this little ginger cat has been this constant companion in my day, and she has some real lessons about presence and finding joy in simple things. And I know she's only an animal, but I ask the question, what really constitutes a life well lived? And I think these are lessons that we can't afford to wait for a loss or that loss to teach us. So today, let's explore what it means to fully live at this stage of life that we're at. Not some grand Instagram worthy way of putting it out there, but just some quite profound way that actually means a difference between how we do each day. So let me tell you a little bit about Ginger Megs and her daily routine, because it's pretty simple, really. So, and it's where I've learned everything about being present. So she'd wake or she'd get out of bed when I got out of bed and she'd move through the morning with me. She'd wait patiently for a breakfast sometimes not so patient, but mostly patient. She'd follow me outside. She'd walk around when I was walking. She'd come to the gym and claim the chair that I had up there. And every so often she'd look ahead, lift her head up and she'd look at me and acknowledge what I was doing. Or maybe she was just checking out some other type of scenery, who knows? But she was there. She was beside me. Then when I'd come in to my desk, she'd be here. She'd settle up on the top of my standing desk, and there was this little warm presence. She was always there in my peripheral vision, and every so often I'd reach over and give her a little pat, and there'd be that little purr that came out of her. And here's what struck me. She's sitting up there having a whale of a time, just being present and just being in my company. And here I am racing through to-do lists, worrying about deadlines, planning tomorrow before today's even halfway done. And she's just completely present in that moment. And she found this joy in not achievement, but in proximity. She didn't need any accomplishments to feel worthy of love. She just needed to be there beside me in my quiet rhythm of daily life. Now, I know what you're probably thinking here. Peter, she's just a cat. And of course, she lived in the moment. Yes, that's a very big difference between humans and animals. But hear me out with this, please. Because what I realized is that we humans, we made a living, we make living so much more complicated than what it needs to be. And research from Harvard psychologist Dr. Matthew Killingsworth found that people who are significantly less happy when their minds are wandering rather than being focused on that present moment. Even when they're wandering and they're thinking about, happy and pleasant thoughts. So it's the quality of our attention that matters when we are paying attention. And she's a cat, I know, but she hasn't mastered this from reading some self-help book or attending some mindfulness retreat. She just knew that right there in front of her was warmth, safety, connection, and it was enough. She wasn't anxious about missing out on something better because she was fully engaged with what was actually going on. And here's the question for us. How often do we find ourselves surviving through our days rather than living our days? I'm talking about that feeling where you're constantly waiting for the next thing, the next weekend, the next holiday, when the kids come home, when you retire, when the kids leave home, maybe. Are you waiting for that next moment to finally take a breath and finally allow yourself to relax and enjoy life? But life's happening. It's happening right now in these absolutely ordinary moments when we're often too busy or too worried to fully experience them. So here's what I want you to try. Start practicing what I call the proximity joy. Finding contentment in a simply being with the people or the places or the animals that matter to you without needing to do something that's productive every single minute. Notice when you're physically present but mentally elsewhere, and practice coming back to where you actually are. Sitting there with Ginger Megs in her final moments, I was struck by how she had transformed from this broken, starving little creature into a cat that was full of life, not by adding any complexity, but by just accepting what was offered with great added gratitude. Now, I know we're humans and she's an animal, but we add these layers to define what a good life is. Career success, social status, material accumulation, constant productivity. And we've been conditioned to believe that more is always better, that we should always be striving for that next big achievement or that next acquisition or that next level. But when loss forces us to examine life, when we're actually mourning, we're not really thinking about those things. We're thinking about the quiet moments. We're thinking about the daily presence, that simpleness of being together. It could be the warmth of a body next to you on the couch. It could be the routine of a morning coffee together. It could be that someone knew how you specifically wanted your cup of tea or your coffee made. And I think this is really important for us women, particularly those that dedicate themselves to measuring how much they're worth by what they do for others, how well they juggle, multiple responsibilities, how successful do we keep everybody else in our lives. And we've been trained to equate our value to this productivity. But Ginger Megs knew this instinctively. She knew that her worth wasn't something that she earned through doing. It was something that she had through just simply being that companion and showing me that love that she had for me in each of those moments. Now, studies on life satisfaction consistently show that once our basic needs are met, the additional wealth, the status symbols, they don't significantly increase our happiness. Strong relationships, meaningful connections, a sense of purpose, and our ability to be present in our own life are the things that matter. We have the opportunity to strip away the unnecessary complexities and focus on what actually matters. We have that wisdom because of our age to know that we don't need the perfect house. We don't need the ideal body, and we don't need the impressive career achievements. Well, they're nice, don't get me wrong. They don't make us feel rich in life. What makes us feel rich is showing up fully for the moments we're given. It's choosing that connection over perfectionism. It's about presence over productivity. It's about being over doing. So how would you go about implementing something like this? Start by identifying what you're currently chasing that might be keeping you from being fully involved in life. Are you focused on future goals? Are you missing out on present happiness and fun times? Are you busy maintaining an image whilst you're not actually living your life? Oh my goodness, look, I see this in my granddaughter. We are basically not even finished, let's say, lunch. We're sitting there eating it, and she's saying, "What's for dinner tonight?" So she's not enjoying the meal, the conversation. She's just worrying about that next thing. And she's so young to be worrying about what's to come, as opposed to, wow, this meal is lovely and I'm grateful for it. So if you had 1 year left right now, what would you spend your time on? Which relationships are you going to prioritize? What experiences are going to matter to you most? And these answers will give you a clue as to what really deserves your attention right now. Now, I know that there are things that we need to do. We might need to keep going to work, but we can still be present in those moments at work too. And we can still be present when we come home from work. So here's something that I think our culture doesn't really talk about, and that is the courage that it takes to feel deeply, especially as we get older. Allowing myself to fully feel the loss of my cat, especially having the grandchildren living here with us now, they saw my tears, and it was pretty open and honest. And I think sometimes the world doesn't want us to show how we're feeling. We're taught that we need to move through everything, and that is strength. That staying or mourning or feeling those feelings is weakness. You know, don't cry, it's just a pet. Or you should be over this by now. At least you had so many good years together. You know, and these are all well-meaning phrases that we might hear, but essentially they're telling us to hurry up and get back to being a productive person in life and in society. But when we sit with that sadness, it allows us to learn something about ourselves. It takes real courage, and it's particularly, I think, important for us women because we are often conditioned to put everybody else's needs and comfort before our own emotional truth. And when my grandkids watch me cry over a cat, um, they're learning that it's safe to feel deeply, and that love does include some level of grief, and that showing emotion doesn't diminish who I am. And I think from my generation and previous generations, it's often missed that we have to rush through life. We have to just get on with it, that we have to be strong. And there is actually some fascinating research on this from Dr. Susan David's work on emotional ability. And it shows that people who acknowledge and process their emotions rather than suppressing and avoiding them, they have better mental health. They have stronger relationships with others, and they have greater life satisfaction. So grief, when we allow it, strips away that pretense and shows us what actually matters, what truly matters. It's like an emotional declutter. It's like cleaning your house out. Suddenly you see more clearly what deserves your energy and your attention and what's just noise in your life. And you know, this isn't just about grief. This is about our relationship with our emotions as we navigate the fact that we are getting older. We often will dismiss our own feelings as inconvenient or inappropriate. And we often just push through our sadness, our anger, or even our happy moments as well too. I know when I have big wins, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that happened. And I just keep going. But what I should be doing is acknowledging those emotions and those feelings and those highs and their lows. Because here's what I've learned. Our emotions are little messengers. And I know that I often talk about how our body speaks to us. Grief tells us that we loved deeply. Anxiety often points out what we value. Anger shows us where our boundaries have been crossed. And when we listen to these different emotions and these messages, instead of immediately trying to fix them or change them, we get valuable information about what matters to us. And the practical application here is about creating space for feeling without judgment. This might mean setting aside time to process rather than staying constantly busy. It might mean talking to some friends. It might mean talking to a counselor. It could also mean writing in a journal or simply sitting for a quiet moment and seeing whatever comes up. So remember, emotional resilience isn't about feeling less, it's about truly feeling and moving through those feelings that you have. It's about honoring that full spectrum of the human experience instead of just what's socially acceptable. The challenge isn't just about understanding these truths intellectually, but building space for them in our daily life before crisis forces the lesson upon us. How do we create room for reflection without turning it into just another task that we might need to do? How do we practice presence before absence teaches us something valuable? And I know for many of the services that I've been to when someone has lost a loved one, myself included, you just want the world to stop. You don't want to keep going, and you can't understand why the world keeps going, but it does. But it's in those moments that we really need to practice those moments of presence. And maybe it starts with noticing what you're racing towards and asking, is it worthwhile racing past the people and the moments and the environments that are right here, right now? Ginger Meg, she didn't feel anxious about missing out or having something better. She just knew that what was here, right in front of her, was enough. It brought me to this ultimate question, and that was, who'll be holding my hand at the end of the day? Who'll be holding yours? Not metaphorically, but literally. Who will know you and me well enough to sit with me in my final moments? And how do we live now to ensure those people are there for the right reasons? They're not there out of obligation, but because we've built some type of relationship that's based on being genuinely present with them, and that they are someone who we care about and that we love deeply. Look, animals accept death as being natural, and humans, we fight against it, but perhaps they understand what we've forgotten is that fear of dying can prevent us from truly living. Now, she lived each moment because she wasn't aware of her. She was totally unaware. Not because she was totally unaware of mortality. She's a survivor, so she knew that each day was important. But she didn't have all those complexities wrapped up in that simple act of doing each day. So how do we create more space for what matters in life? I think we could start to do a time and energy audit. So for a week, pay attention to your time and your mental energy and where it's actually going. And this is something that I'm working through right now. It's not where I think it's going, it's where it is actually going. So I'm writing it down. And then I'm going to ask myself, is this where I want to spend my life? Like, what would it look like if I was protecting my time, my energy? And what would it look like if I was fully present and connected and that I was simply being? And you know what? It might mean saying no to things that don't align with me or fit with my values. It might mean creating new rituals that anchor me in a present moment. Could mean actually sitting and enjoying my morning cup of tea, which I have just finished. And I did. I sat there and really embraced it. And I wasn't sitting on my phone. My phone was nowhere near me. And I was just in the moment. It might mean having conversations that matter with the people that matter to you as well, too. Not just about, oh, how's your day been? What was the weather like today? And the goal isn't to eliminate all the responsibilities or completely be self-indulgent here. I'm not talking about that. The goal here is to make conscious choices about how we spend our time rather than just allowing each day to pass by. I like to finish these up with a move moment because it is all about moving forward in some way, whether that be physically or emotionally. And this one is directly inspired by Ginger Megs and her total mastery of presence with me, just following me around all day. And so I want to call this thing the companionship breathing. And I want you to find a comfortable position, whether you're sitting, whether you're standing, it doesn't matter. And if you've got a pet, then feel free to invite that pet in to join you. And if you've got a loved one who's sitting there doing something else, invite them as well too. So all I want you to do is just close your eyes and take 3 natural breaths, not deep breaths, just naturally how you're breathing. I don't want you to force anything, just breathing in and out. But what I want you to do is imagine that that breath is that rhythm that connects you in this moment. So each inhale, you become more fully here. Each exhale releases the things that are out there. And as you breathe, if your mind starts planning something or wandering, look, that's completely okay. This is going to happen. But I want you to just gently return and focus on that breath. Just like the way you might pat your dog or your cat or whatever animal it is that you happen to have. Or maybe you might touch a loved one's arm. And just ask yourself, what do I need to notice about this moment? Am I feeling safe? Am I feeling grateful? Is this pleasant? Is it uncomfortable? And notice that you don't have to be anywhere else, but right here, right now. And I'd love it if you could just spend 2 minutes breathing this way. And the purpose isn't to achieve something spectacular. It's just to practice this art of being present without any type of agenda. It's just how Ginger Megs was present with me each and every day. And when you're ready, you just open your eyes up and carry that feeling with you to whatever comes next in your day. So here are some key things for today. The first is that there's a profound difference between surviving and living. And it comes down to presence. Rather than just spending our day going through the motions, we choose to fully show up and actually live in those moments. Second, we've overcomplicated what makes life good. When you strip away those layers of achievement and things, what remains are connection, presence, gratitude, things that we already have. And thirdly, remember that feeling deeply, connecting with yourself is not weakness, it is courage. Our emotions are messengers, and if we listen to them instead of dismissing them, they guide us towards what truly matters in our life. And finally, when we have the power to make conscious choices about how we spend our time and energy, we don't have to wait for permission to prioritize presence over productivity or being over doing. So your challenge this week is to notice the difference between surviving and living in your daily experience, paying attention to what moments you might be racing through versus the ones that you're fully present with. Notice what pulls you into survival mode and what helps you feel more alive. And maybe, just maybe, find some small way to honor the teachers in your life, whether they've got 4 legs, whether they've got 2 legs. Those people around us, those animals around us, they've shown you what it means to be fully present. And this morning I woke up and Ginger Megs wasn't there for a morning walk or to have breakfast. And there's a hole there. And the lesson for me is that life is fragile, love is simple, and the moments that matter most are often the quietest ones, if we're present enough to notice them. So thanks for joining me today on Ageless Confidence. And this conversation is all about being present and fully living, and I hope it resonated with you today. And I'd love to hear what you thought about it, and maybe share some of the teachers in your life and what it's reminded you of what they taught you and what really matters to you. And so until next time, just remember, life is life, age is age, and we are getting real about both of these things. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you all soon, fabulous women. See you.